Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is the Historathon Middle Ages and Golden Age book tag. So this book tag was created by Jack, the Rambling Raconteur. Please check out his channel if you don't already know it. It is great. He is always reading interesting stuff and has terrific things to say. And he has also very kindly created at least two tags so far for Historathon. Historathon is a year-long reading event where we are reading, discussing, and celebrating nonfiction history. And we have been dividing the year up into 4 quarters, with each quarter looking at a different time period. The first quarter looked at prehistory up to the year 500 CE, and the second quarter, which this tag is basing itself upon, is from the years 500 CE to 1500. And that quarter has actually just ended. I am actually filming this in the first week of July, but I was just very busy and didn't get a chance to get to it. So I'm now trying to catch up on my tags. So Jack, I'm sorry it took so long for me to finally get to this, but as always, you created a great tag, and I'm glad to get to it. So let us begin. All of these prompts are inspired by various historical civilizations that existed during the second quarter of Historathon, those time periods. So the first one is the Holy Roman Empire. Name a book that has a title or first sentence that is a lie. For that, I went to my bookshelf and I grabbed this. The Amityville Horror, a true story. We all know, of course, Amityville. We all know the story of the Lutz family. This was published, this is a book club edition from 1977, of course, purporting to be the true account of a haunting on Long Island, but of course it is not. Those people closest to the whole thing have pretty much, exposed or admitted to it being wrong. I know there's at least one son in the family who insists that it was all real. I did see a documentary about him a few years ago, and it kind of made me sad. It looked like he had a lot of other issues he was dealing with. No, this is not real, but of course it is written as though it was. So not a true story, and also not very well written. It is incredibly pulpy and cheesy. But I hold on to things like this because I do have a deep interest in the ways that ghosts and hauntings work in our culture and affect our culture. So even though I don't see this as a good book or even a true story, I do see it as very important to our American culture and how we see ghosts and how we use them. Stephen King has a great analysis of the film, especially seeing it as a financial horror film, basically for the working class and, basically losing everything financially in this home that you've invested yourself in. Now that is, whether ghosts are real or not, that is a terrifying prospect. So I do consider this an important work, but not for reasons that are intrinsic to itself. It's more of a cultural touchstone. That's why I keep it and, I have it accessible to me. But no, that is clearly a lie on the front. 2, the Mayans. What is your favorite month of the year for reading? And of course, the Mayans were famous for having a very accurate calendar. I don't know. I mean, I almost want to say February because I'm in Connecticut. For me, that means that we're still getting snow. We still get snow days. I don't have to really work outside unless I have to shovel. I'm not like mowing the lawn or anything or doing, upkeeping. And we don't have a lot of holiday things at all. We don't have a lot of birthdays that we have to go to. So I get to spend time on the weekends in the morning. I usually wake up really early because during the school year, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning each morning. So on the weekend, I'm usually up by like 5:30, and that's like sleeping into me. So I get up way before the kids do. And, I come into what, in this case, it's my office, which is now finally getting done. I don't have a bunch of boxes behind me, but just come in here, turn on the light, and read. I think February possibly, just because I don't have a lot of interruptions. Number 3, the Pāla Empire. Name a book or writer that marked the end of an era. these kind of things are a little bit more difficult for me. And there's another one that I really can't answer, that's going to be coming up. Now, I could be wrong about this, because I say I am a horror fan. My channel name is Revenant Reads, but a lot of my horror fandom is more wrapped around horror cinema. I don't consider myself well-read in horror fiction. I am trying to remedy that very slowly, but I don't have a lot of fiction usually inside my reading rotation. I do get to it sometimes. I'm mostly concentrating on Gothic work right now from the 19th century. But, so I might be wrong in this, but I want to say Richard Matheson, because from my understanding, and I have read some of his works, he seems to be the one that took horror into the modern day, brought it right basically into the homes of your mid-20th century suburbanite, especially in the 1950s, and also started incorporating science with the supernatural. So in something like I Am Legend, we have vampires, but it's not a dark, distant castle of vampires that have some supernatural thing. It is vampires in the suburbs, and there is a scientific explanation for these things. So I feel like, you know, basically he marks the end of a certain era in horror writing, which of course never completely goes away. But I think that his approach allows writers like Stephen King, who puts horror in the quotidian American middle class, mostly in Maine, rather than some distant Gothic landscape, or, you know, so anyhow, that's why I'm going to say Richard Matheson. I think that he represents a major shift in horror. I could be a little bit wrong about that, because like I said, I'm not well versed, but that is my understanding. People can correct me politely, please, if I'm wrong about that. Number 4, the Vikings. My favorite. Whose library on YouTube would you want to raid? I'm going to say Michael K. Vaughan. He's got some great, beautiful books behind him on his videos, but those aren't the ones that I want. I want to raid his graphic novel collection. He's got a huge collection of Marvel epic collections, and I especially want his Conan collections. I think he has a whole shelf just of Conan graphic novels. But that's what I would do. I would absolutely beat down his door and grab as much as I can. Of course, that would be thousands of pounds worth of books, because those things are heavy. But yeah, maybe I can, pull a ship up and throw it in there. So yeah, Michael K. Vaughan, I'm coming for you. Number 5, the Inca Empire. What work is at the pinnacle of its genre? Now, I'm not sure if he's referencing this because of things like Machu Picchu. They're at the pinnacle of their mountains. Exactly where that prompt comes from, but I like it. But this is the one that I can't really answer. I don't feel like I've read enough of any one genre to declare any work its pinnacle. I just don't feel like, even though I've read a lot of a genre, I don't feel like I've read enough of any one to really declare anything to be the pinnacle. So I'm going to have to kind of take a pass on that one, unfortunately. Sorry, Jack. Number 6, the Abbasid Caliphate. Who is your favorite writer on science or mathematics? This would be a dead writer that I still always loved reading, and that would be Carl Sagan. Sorry for the reflection on the window there that I have in front of me. I've read most of Carl Sagan's works. This one I have not read yet, Varieties of Scientific Experience, A Personal View of the Search for God, which I think this might have been lectures or something like that were compiled. I could be wrong about that. But this is one that I actually hope to get to this summer for, Book Trek 2023, where we are reading Star Trek fiction. But for 3 months, we essentially read Star Trek fiction from June, July, and August. But there are also optional away missions. And one of those away missions is you can read nonfiction science. And this is one of those Carl Sagan books that I have not gotten to yet that I would like to get to. Carl Sagan has just always had that mix for me that I always really liked, of science, but also mixing history in with his books. I've always loved his point of view and his writing. You can always hear his voice. And I think that section of Pale Blue Dot, where he talks about that pixel of Earth that was taken from, I think it was the Voyager probe that went out and they turned around and took a picture of Earth. And he has this whole, I think, beautiful passage where he talks about, look at that pale blue dot. That's us. That's Earth. Every conqueror, every lover, all that, that's all there. So I think he had a way of seeing the world in a way that I really appreciated, and it made me value the Earth and our place in it a lot more. So it would be Carl Sagan. Number 7, Byzantium. Name a work that you couldn't stop reading despite it being confusing. So this isn't one that I would say I couldn't stop reading. It was just one that I didn't stop reading. But that would be, again, a science book, but it would be The Elegant Universe by Brian Greene, which tries to explain what string theory is. And, I'm sorry, I'm not a physicist. And I understand that when physicists write for the general population, they have to, in some sense, lie, because their world is in mathematics, and that's the language of physics. And I am not a mathematician, and they are not writing in math. And there were so many times when I just knew I wasn't really understanding what the hell he was talking about. And it got to a point where I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to keep reading a passage over and over and over again. I'm just going to go with this, because by the time I read The Elegant Universe, string theory had already been around for a couple of decades, and it had not really produced anything, it seems like, of value yet. So I wasn't too concerned about understanding it in depth at all. I just wanted a general understanding of it. And I got that, but I know there were parts of that book that I just went right over my head, and I was just comfortable with that. 8, the Song Dynasty. What culture from 500 to 1500 CE are you interested in learning more about? Now, there's already ones that I like learning about that I still want to learn more about, which would be like the Anglo-Saxons, the Norse. Ones that I don't know as much about would be something like the Merovingians. I had read The Dark Queens actually late last year, and I really liked that, and the Merovingians just seemed fascinating. The Mongols I'd like to learn more about. I do have a book on Genghis Khan that I think I'll try and get to for next year's Historathon. And like the English monarchs for the later Middle Ages, I was hoping to get to that in June for the last month of Q2, but I ended up kind of falling into a bunch of fiction read-alongs that I've been wanting to get to for so long that just kind of all hit at once. So I jumped on them when I could. Otherwise, I was planning on reading about basically the High Middle Ages and the later kings and queens of that time period, which I only know very limited understanding of. But I'd also like to learn more about pre-Columbian native civilizations. I've read some stuff on the Aztecs and the Incas, but also I especially like to read some more about things in my own area in the northeastern United States, or what would become the United States, of course. Read more about those civilizations. Number 9, the Pāla Empire. Name a book that helps readers appreciate the cultural heritage of Africa. I haven't read too much about Africa, I have to say. And I forgot to pull this book. I was going to pull this book, but I forgot. It's downstairs where my kids are right now. So I don't have it available. But Jack had shown Sunjata, which would be a pick that I would certainly agree with. One other one about Africa that I remember really liking was Nisa, which I think was published in the, was it maybe early 80s? Or maybe in late 70s. It was published a while ago, a long time ago. But it's essentially about a member of the Kung tribe. I think it's a Kung. I think it has a click to it. They're a tribe of hunter-gatherers from like southern Africa's Kalahari Desert region. But it basically was a work of anthropology, where it was looking at what was the life of African hunter-gatherers, and especially the place of women in that role, and how was that place in society changing as the population was growing more sedentary. So, it's sort of its African cultural heritage, I guess. It's not ancient. It's not from this time period. But of course, the things that we know about today's hunter-gatherers, we can often extrapolate and use to understand historical hunter-gathering tribes. So I think it sort of fits. But I remember really liking that book, Nisa. And 10, the Merovingians, which I said I would like to know more about. This is the last one. What is your favorite pop culture reference to this period? There are so many. It's really difficult to say. And it's difficult for me to understand what pop culture, what we mean by that. There's a lot of like Norse-inspired folk music that I listen to. I don't know if that's pop culture. When I think pop culture, I mean it's something that like, my parents would know, and maybe even my middle school students. It's something that's in the wider ether, so it's not so specific. Of course, I can go to things like I love Monty Python, The Holy Grail, which a lot of people would have seen. But I'm going to go with, just as something that most people will know, is Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song. Basically, the rock song about Vikings attacking. And I also really love the cover that Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did for the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo soundtrack, which I just think is a fantastic cover. And I'll leave a link to that, if I remember, down in the description if people haven't heard that and they want to hear it. It's more of an industrial version of the song. But that is it. That is the Historathon Middle Ages and Golden Age book tag. I'm actually gonna tag somebody for this, and since I'm coming from Michael K. Vaughan's collection, he should only have fair warning. So I am gonna tag Michael K. Vaughan if he wants to do this. I think that it would be interesting to hear his answers to this if he chooses to do it. He's certainly not obligated, but I know he reads science. I know that he reads, a lot of things that would fall into these different prompts. And maybe he can correct me on Richard Matheson if I'm wrong, because he certainly knows a lot more about him than I do. So once again, that is it. Thank you, Jack, for creating this and for tagging me. And as always, thank you, BookTube.